benefited from installing a Generac generator in their home so that they never feel powerless. Homeowners across the country are recognizing how a Generac automatic standby generator can safeguard their home investment. And with natural disasters affecting millions of people each year, the benefits are clear. When the Rushing family of Houston, Texas stared down Hurricane Ike, they were glad to have a Generac generator protecting their home. Hurricane Ike, one of the most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history, took its toll on Houston, Texas, knocking out power for days. But one family remained safe and comfortable in their home, thanks to their Generac standby generator.
Hurricane Ike came into Galveston in September of 2008. We were here and the outer bands were pushing on and took out our power about 6:20 that night. And we were out of power for the next 12 days.
The Rushing household became a safe haven for dozens of other families in the community who hadn't been prepared.
What we did was we ran power cords to our neighbors. Our power was the only one in the area, and we took the refrigerator and freezer foods from 6 of our neighbors here and put them in ours, and we had food and cooked and took care of our neighbors and families. We also had TV, internet, and power. We had everyone charging their cell phones, keeping up with the news, what's going on, and the recovery efforts from Galveston all the way into Houston.
Hurricane Ike, the third major Atlantic hurricane of 2008, was classified as a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 145 miles per hour. In total, Ike was blamed for 195 deaths and $32 billion worth of damage.
They issued an evacuation. We were in a mandatory evacuation area. Our family and most of our friends left. We had several people stay, and this became our fallback point because we knew we'd have power. Our Generac generator performed for 12 days. We were out of power from Friday night, September 12th, till Wednesday, September 24th, and ran straight through, no problems, provided all the power we needed for us and my neighbors, and performed perfectly during the entire time. So it had an effect for people just driving in the neighborhood, being able to see this house up, the impact it had on the neighborhood. People started asking questions. Where do you get it? How did you go about getting it? I've told them the story, and I know 2 already on my street have done it. I don't know how many others have done it, but it did impact the neighborhood. It impacted friends around, just not in my neighborhood, but around Houston that I have spoke to tell them how important this was and how much it helped us to recover from the storm.
In Texas, more than 3 million people were left without power. In some areas, rainfall exceeded 20 inches.
When I was looking at generators, I had researched them and knew that Generac is the way I wanted to go. And when I purchased it from my dealer here, I went for the best unit I could get for my application, and I'm very happy with that. It performed just as planned. I wanted it to serve this purpose if we lost our power for a short period of time. Again, with 12 days. But in other instances, we have lost power just for hours, where we had a party one night and the power went out from a storm coming through. Power came on. So it has benefited us not only for the natural disaster need, but also for impromptu times when a storm comes in. It's there, it gives me the comfort of mind, it gives my family the comfort of mind, and we lose power and we say, wait for it, it's coming. And 30 seconds later, we're up and running. So we've been very happy. It's performed as planned. It has done everything I've needed to do, and I'm pleased to have that product at my house.
Hurricane Ike ravaged the Gulf Coast. But with Generac standby generators, the Rushings never feel powerless. When you purchase and install a
Natural disasters happen every day. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and ice storms can cause devastation and disruption to our vulnerable power supply system. But it isn't just inclement weather that has the potential to turn the lights out on homes and businesses. Curious animals, automobile accidents, human error, and utility failures in our aging power infrastructure can also trigger a blackout. And for homeowners, it can happen at the most inconvenient of times, while cooking a meal, in the middle of a storm, or even while away on vacation. The modern world runs on electricity, and its sudden loss can have dangerous consequences. We rely on it for entertainment, communication, and food storage. In many ways, our safety depends on it. Electrical outages are more than just inconveniences. However, an alarming number of Americans are not adequately prepared for a loss of electricity. Though most homes contain candles and flashlights, and maybe even a portable generator, they are no substitute for an automatic power supply. Thanks to standby generators, worrisome electrical outages need no longer be an issue. 24 hours a day, homeowners are protected from unexpected power failures and their crippling effects. Quite simply, if the power goes out, a permanently installed generator is ready to automatically restore power, even if no one is home. Automatic standby generators provide security and peace of mind. Generac Power Systems leads the industry by manufacturing more home standby generators than all other brands combined. Affordable, widely available, and easy to install. Generac is the name in generators.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. You know, we live in a fairly protected area here along the Wasatch Front, and we don't often think about the same type of large disasters that we've seen here on the screen. We don't think about tornadoes, we don't think about, hurricanes, but we have experienced situations that cause us to ponder. You know, whether it's heavy snowstorms, whether it's heavy rainstorms, whether it's fire, there are situations that do cause us to have to be prepared. You know, when we sit around the kitchen table and talk about preparedness, or when we talk to the neighbors about our preparedness, their preparedness, in most cases we're talking about our food storage. We're talking about water storage. We're talking about, you know, do we have enough flashlights and batteries? And those are all important things. The one thing that we very seldom talk about is if we had a power outage, if we did have something that caused us to be without power for hours or for days, what would we do? Does that really matter to us? And I think that when it comes down to it, it does. You know, oftentimes is there anyone here that has not experienced some type of a power outage in their home? Probably not. We all have in some type. Oftentimes it's in the middle of the night. You wake up and your alarm clock's flashing and you realize the power went out. Or you come home from work, the same thing. Or oftentimes, you know, it can be in the middle of summer, in the middle of winter, and we can have hours, if not days, of power outage. You know, and there are many of us that have health issues that we have to worry about, or we're caring for elderly parents or others that have issues that we need to deal with. So we've become quite dependent on electric power, and being prepared for those outages can be just as important as having, you know, our cupboard stocked and our water containers filled. So what we're here to talk about today is how do we prepare for those situations, and what is the extent of our needs? You know, we don't all have, you know, there are situations like mine where I'm an empty nester. I don't have children at home. I live in a smaller home, so I don't have as big a need as, say, a family of 6, you know, that have 4 children and parents and a lot of things going on. So our needs are different. So that's one of the first things, is determining what is the extent of our need and how, you know, how far do we need to go with that. My name is Scott Hansen. This is Terry Jenkins, and we'd like to now talk with you a little bit about how to determine what your need might be and under what circumstances you might need that extra power. Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, can you hear me? What I'd like to do is talk about how we know how big of a generator we need to do what we want to be able to accomplish in taking care of our emergency needs. What we've set up here, I'm going to step down here just so we can talk about it. This is a typical house. We'll just call this a home that maybe like we all live in. And when you're looking for a generator and you want to know how much you can afford, your budget will determine, you know, the size of a generator. And you say, what's the minimum I can get by with? And so what we've tried to do here is to show with the different types of generators what you can do with that. This is a little 3250. That's about as small as I've seen anybody use, and that will run like your furnace and maybe a refrigerator and some lights. And so number one, when you plug in, that's what you can do with that one. Okay, refridge, furnace, some lights in there. So with a small one like that, you can probably pick up some real absolute necessities, okay? Now, if you want to go to a little bit bigger generator, the 8 kW model, they all are about the same size. They just have a different motor and a different alternator. But the 8 kW, now you can add a microwave. You can add some more lighting throughout the house. Maybe add the garage door opener. Believe it or not, I did a house, and the guy said, how do you like it? And he said, really good except for one thing. I'm only 99% happy. And I said, why? And he said, because my garage door wouldn't go up in the snowstorm. So guess what? We had to go hook his garage door up. But anyway, so that's an 8, and that's a next size. And when you get to the 8, when you get to this size right here, this one you would have to run the extension cords around from the generator, and we have ways of hooking them up to your furnace so that you can do it safely. You don't have to worry about the utility power coming back on and then blowing that up. That's a really dangerous thing to do, to tie into your circuit without your circuit disconnected, because the utility power is obviously a lot stronger than your generator, and it will just there's been a case where it actually burned the house down. It just blew the generator up. So you want to make sure that when you do this, that you always do it in a safe way so that you don't have to worry about that happening, the utility coming on. The next size that you can go to after that, the nice thing about the 8s are that they're all automatic, meaning that you hook them up to your electrical in your house, whatever you want to power up, and if your power goes off, the generator automatically will sense that the power's off, and it will come on after about 30 seconds, and then you'll be able to just carry on. In my house, when our power goes off, my kids will go, okay, they start counting. They get to about 30 and the power's on. Then they go back. One of the jokes with my kids when they were in school, living at home, was they could tell what neighborhoods had the power outage just because the girls came with ponytails. So that was kind of funny. But then the next one is you can go up to about a 10 kW. That'll add a little bit more. You can now add your air conditioner. You can add a freezer, add a water heater if you wanted to. So the different colored lights kind of indicate what you're able to add. You notice that on those smaller generators, if you have like a well or something like that, still not able to really do that. And the reason, maybe if that was the only thing it was running, it could do it. But most of the time, whenever people have a generator, they want to run as much as they can. And so, like for example, if you have the 8, it could probably do the well, but it probably couldn't do your fridge and the other things at the same time. So then You go to the little bit, the next one up, which is one of the most popular ones that we sell, and that's the 17 kW. This still looks like the same cabinet. The footprint is about 24 by 48 and about 29 inches tall. But that one, now you can see you can light up pretty much anything you need in your house. You've got your sump working, you've got your water if you have a well, and then you can also power up more of your kitchen circuits, your stove, and your and your oven. So when you're looking, and then you can also throw in some of the other things that you might not have thought about with the a little bit bigger generators. You can go bigger than that. Of course, you can go up to the 22, 50 kW. The advantage of the bigger generators are the 17s, which are getting into the larger of the liquid or the air-cooled. They're the least expensive, and for functionality, if you just want something that can keep things working and not necessarily have to have everything at the same time, they do a great job with that. If you're a person that says, if my power goes off, I don't want to know it's off. I want everything working in the house. Then you've got to get into what they call the liquid cooled generators, and they'll be up above a 22 kW, up to as big. I've put them on homes that have been in the hundreds, 100 kW. Do they need that? I don't know. I'm thinking more of this, because the nice thing about the smaller air-cooled generators is if you lost your natural gas, by flipping a switch in the air box in the generator, you can flip it from natural gas to propane. And storing propane isn't a problem because there's not a shelf life as with gasoline. And on about the 17 kW you could run on like a 100-pound tank. They call them 100-pound is the biggest, that is more of a portable tank. You can probably run it about 10 to 15 hours on an average time if you needed to run it on the propane. Nice thing about natural gas is that it's really easy to fix the lines, and so if you had a natural gas line break, it's not a major deal for the gas company. Of course, they can isolate. If you can imagine, the valley is in a big circle, okay, and you have a lot of lines coming down all the canyons. So what the gas company told me is you would have, if you had an earthquake and it severed any area, they just isolate that area and then backfeed everything else. So chances are, unless it was a major devastating earthquake, you probably would still, if you're in an unlucky neighborhood, you might not have your gas, but chances are most of the people could still get their gas on fairly quickly. That's why the smaller propane tanks are good, because it at least gives you the option of powering your generator up for a couple of days if you had to. If you had a couple of the 100-pound tanks in your shed or in your garage. The larger generators, it's a little harder to do that because they have a larger consumption. I've done it with some of the 100-pound tanks, but it's just they can't get a lot of load on them, and that's where you have a problem because their consumption is a lot higher. Does anybody have any questions as far as how you would size or what you'd need to do? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I've answered everything. I did good then. We'll show you another. We have one more little scene of the another disaster, and then after that, we'll just say a couple of closing things, and if you have any other questions, then we can answer those then.
Realize the benefits of having a Generac generator protecting their home. When a sudden ice storm knocked out power to the community of Wellington, Kansas, residents dealt with frigid temperatures and more than 2 days without power. But one family remained safe and comfortable in their home thanks to their Generac standby generator.
Basically, it was just your classic Kansas ice storm, which basically looks like a nuclear bomb went off. Ice, limbs everywhere. We have a tremendous wind situation, and any time that you start to mix freezing precipitation with it, things can go wrong really fast.
But one house shone like a beacon in the rural community. In fact, Tony Martin received a number of phone calls asking why his house was still lit up.
And at that point, my neighbors started to call me and wanted to know why did I have electricity, and they didn't. At that point, I told them, well, you know, I'm a Generac generator dealer. I just finished installing my home generator, and basically we're just fine. And no, I don't know when the power's coming back on. But if you're interested in a generator, we can help you out.
It was a better sales pitch than he could ever have asked for. Ice storms are some of the most dangerous weather conditions in North America. They occur when rain freezes due to a layer of cold air that forms around the surface of the ground and objects such as trees and power lines.
My Generac generator, of course, kicked on automatically, and we went through the evening. Fortunately, in our situation, we did everything that we do normally with utility power, and then we ran on from there. And we were very, very satisfied with the way it went.
One of the most damaging aspects of an ice storm is power outage. The added weight of ice can cause trees and branches to fall and power lines to snap. And with low temperatures and no heat, power outages during ice storms are increasingly hazardous.
After 9/11 hit, I think I, along with the rest of this nation, kind of woke up and said that we are vulnerable. So at that point, I really started to investigate the situation of possibly being able to provide generators for my customers. Before, I could always just fix their electricity, but I couldn't produce their electricity. If they're out, they're out. And I can't wave a magic wand to make it come back on. I decided to go with Generac and went and took their training course in St. Louis, and at that point decided to become a dealer and made the purchase.
An ice storm may have knocked out power to most of Wellington, Kansas, but thanks to Generac standby generators, never feel powerless.
Okay, is that unplugged? Hey, Scott, can you put that over that again? I could probably spend hours telling you about examples of things that have happened to people and the things that the generators have helped them with. I had last year we had a customer that called me and he said, "Could you come and check my generator? It won't shut off." And I said, "What's wrong?" And they said, "I don't know, but I think it's broken." And I said, "Okay." And he lived up in the mountains, and so I drove up there, and the first thing I did is I went over and looked at his electric meter, and I said, "Did you know your power's off?" And he said, "Really?" And so we went over and I looked and I said, "You better call the power company because your power's off." He said, "You know, if this generator hadn't been running," and he had about 4 foot of snow around his cabin. He said, "If this generator hadn't been running, my house would have been full of water," because he had a hot water heating system in his house. I have another customer that has turkey farms down in Moroni. One of his neighbors didn't have a generator. And I have learned more about things that I didn't know mattered in generators. But anyway, his neighbor lost their power. He lost his power, but he had the generator running. His neighbor lost the power, lost 150,000 toms, because when the power goes off, the circulation on the coops go out, and then the turkeys panic and they start climbing on top of each other. And he said it wasn't an hour and they were all suffocated and dead. So he lost 150,000 toms. And that's happened a couple of times. And we put more generators in Moroni than you can believe, because once one customer has, one family has a problem like that, they don't let it happen again to some of the other ones. Another one of our customers down in Beaver, a retired couple, they travel quite a bit, and they had gone on vacation for, they traveled for, had a motorhome, or gone for a month at a time. They were gone. They came home and had just filled their freezer with beef before they left. Came home and their power had gone off. Freezer had gone off. The beef had rotted. It was in the summertime. Blew the door off the freezer and shot rotten beef throughout their kitchen and around. He said, it's taken me 3 years to get that stink out of here. Now every time he goes out of town, he calls me. He says, will you stop by and check and see if my generator's working if you're down in the neighborhood? So there's a lot of reasons for having generators, and it's not necessarily for preparing for the big earthquake, but it's taking care of the needs of our families. I know in my own family, my wife and I were getting ready for work one morning, and she was in the shower. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was out. I'd already had my shower, so I was out just finished getting ready, and her power went off. And what would a wife think? She thinks, honey, what are you doing? Because the lights go out. And I said, it wasn't me. And I said, just count to 30. So 30 seconds later, power's back on, and we're back getting ready for work. I mean, that's for me, the reason that I got a generator is the number of times that we lose the power. I mean, I think on our street, after I've had a generator for about, probably 5 years, 6 years, our power, a transformer went out, a car was coming down the street and hit a pole and ripped out the pole, and they couldn't get our power on for 8 hours. The wintertime, there was another deal. I mean, it just seems like it's one thing after another. And one of the trade magazines was telling us that you remember that outage that they had back in the east, kind of the mid-east, like in New York and up in that area, was like for like a couple of weeks that they had the power outage. They had a big article about that, and they said the power grid is so dilapidated that it would cost them $50 billion to get it to where it wouldn't be in such a deteriorated condition. And they said it's just not going to happen. I mean, you go through some of the neighborhoods and you can see old poles, and they don't replace them until they fall down or something happens. And so it's nice having a generator, because in the cold weather, I know we had an outage. A neighbor down the street didn't have a generator. Of course, my kids are the kind that they would turn all the lights on in the house, turn on the Christmas lights, whatever they could do to kind of rub it in. And my neighbor down the street, a single mom with a couple of kids, was using candles to keep the house lit so they could go to the bathroom and so forth. Well, they decided to go get pizza, and while they were gone getting pizza, they had the candle in the bathroom. It caught the curtain on fire, and so the curtain caught fire, and she comes home and opens the door and has just smoke bellowing out of the house. And she's a single mom and panicked and went running into the house trying to find the fire, because she was not going to let her house burn down. Found the fire was in there in the bathroom. Luckily, when the curtain caught fire, it dropped down. The tank on the toilet burst, put most of the fire out. So she didn't have. I mean, what a miracle for her. But the thing that was nice was that she was all covered in soot and just really hadn't had dinner, and we had her over to the house, cooked her some hamburgers, and let them have a shower and everything. It was really nice to have a place that people could come to. And I think of it with my family. My kids are mostly all gone and on their own, and it's nice to be able to have a place that until they can afford to do something like this, have a place they can come to and get out of the cold. I've had neighbors, elderly neighbors, that have lost power and just kind of panic when they lose their power, and they're freezing, and they just, what do they do? And so we invite them over to the house. So when you're gone, one of the big reasons I put mine in, we were in California when we had that big snowstorm about 5 years ago, and our power was off for 2 or 3 days. I was sick because I thought, I have a hot tub, and I thought my hot tub's going to freeze, my house is going to freeze, and I was just ready to catch a flight home because I have portables. Portable doesn't do me any good when I'm not home, and so I just said, boy, that's it. And I came home in that spring, I put a generator on my house, and I haven't regretted it. It's a bit of an investment, but if you're one that doesn't like to replace freezers of food and refrigerators and damage that's caused by power outages, then I think a generator is a great investment. And portables, the one thing that I will say about portables is it requires somebody to start it. And the nice thing about the home standby generators is they automatically will run every week for 12 minutes. They keep themselves always ready to go. If you have a portable, you've got to do that. Every month, I suggest people go out and start your portable generator, run it for 10 or 15 minutes, just every month. Just let it just run. But you can plug a light into it or plug some things into it. A funny story about my dad, he bought a portable from me, and then he filled it up, ready to go with gas, put it in the garage. About 1.5 years later, he had a power outage, went out, tried to start it. Carburetor was gummed up, gas was rotten. Called me up and said, what the heck did you sell me a crappy generator for? So I had to go over, rebuild his generator for him again. Did it again. 2 years later, same thing happened. I said, Dad, let's just put a standby on your house so you quit calling me and blaming me for your bad generator. But that's the hard thing about portables is they take a lot of maintenance. And we have people bring motorhomes in, and they've got generators, and they'll have 50 hours on them, and they'll say, and we'll have to replace the alternator, because what happens if generators aren't constantly being used, the resins that keep the wires insulated, they get really brittle, and then they fall off. They fall off, and then you short your windings out. Then you have to replace your alternator, which is your rotor and your stator. So I just tell people, automatic standby, you install it, you don't worry about it. You check it once in a while, make sure it's working, but most of the time you don't have to ever worry about it again once it's installed. Portables, you got to make sure that you start them every month, or you're going to be blaming the generator that it's a crappy generator when it's really maybe you haven't been maintaining it like you should. Have I created any more questions or anything that I can answer for anybody? If not, our booth is over on aisle 600. If you have any questions, or if you would like us to give you a free estimate, to take a look at your house to see how hard it would be to install a generator on your home, would be happy to give you a free estimate. And any literature that maybe helps you, there's a lot of different things that we can do to help you so that you can make it affordable to put the generator on your home. Thank you.